Even the great communist government of China is starting to actually surprise me. Usually they're only messing with films, so that's 3, 4 times a year. Whatever's released in China, and then some low-level censorship here in the United States if there's anything criticizing them, but that's usually under the radar, so we don't really know about it. But they have gone after some real high-profile targets in the last few days. Uh, I was just talking earlier about the NBA, how they uh, they scrubbed broadcasting of NBA games. Was it on CCTV in China? All because the general manager of one of the NBA's teams was sent out a tweet voicing support for the protesters in Hong Kong, and it seems like Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he says he respects the free speech of the players, but you know, explain why on earth it appears that it appears that the general manager was pressured into deleting the tweet. I don't have proof that he was forced to do it, but it sure seems like he was pressured into doing so. So explain that one to me. Now, I absolutely love the TV show South Park. Well, the last few seasons I haven't enjoyed too much, but I do love some of the older seasons. I absolutely love Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I think they've done a wonderful job with that show. Whenever I go back and watch old episodes, it just cracks me up every time. They made an episode when they were criticizing the censorious practices. They were making fun of the censorious practices of, getting something into China. Again, if you want to release a film into China, you have to self-censor to heck and back. And South Park was basically satirizing that. And so they were talking. I can't do it justice. You'll just have to find the clip and watch. Anyway, after they had released this episode, it apparently got banned everywhere in Chinese internet, on the Chinese internet, kind of proving South Park's point that if you don't self-censor, you're going to get banned in China. So my hat's off to Trey and Matt. You actually proved the point you were setting out for. And something that's a little amusing is they sent out a fake apology, a non-apology to China afterwards. And, I'm just delighted that they're sticking to their guns. This is coming from CNN. South Park creators give, quote unquote, official apology after reports the show was scrubbed from the Chinese internet. From CNN, South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker hit back at China after the government scrubbed the show from the internet. This again just shows how thin-skinned. I don't know if it's just the Chinese people or the Chinese government. I'm going to blame the Chinese government right now. Because you have what I believe 1.4 billion people in China, so I'm not going to paint them with a broad brush. But I will paint the Chinese Communist government with a broad brush all I darn well please. It just shows how absolutely thin-skinned they are. I was watching, what was it? I was watching a TV show about the Third Reich the other day. It's called Generation War, and it's a German TV show. And in Germany, in German, it's called something different. And there was this famous singer in one of the episodes she goes into a bar, and there's some guys who are, they're catcalling her. And the guys who are catcalling her are soldiers who were stationed at the Eastern Front. And she just says something. This is, I believe, it's either 1943 or 1944. So the tide is clearly turned against Germany, and so the Soviet Union is starting to turn back the tide. And she basically just tells them that victory on the Eastern Front is useless. Well, after this, she gets arrested, put in prison. Come 1945, the Allies are already into Germany. The Western Allies are already into Germany. They take her out and they execute her. All because she said something bad about the German government at the time. I don't know if this actually. Oh. No, I take that back. This stuff actually did happen. especially in the 30s. If you said something nasty about the German government, you were put in a concentration camp. And back then, they were more re-education camps in the early Reich. But if you didn't conform, you were executed for sure. So yes, I'm sure this kind of thing actually did happen. But it just reminds me of the modern Chinese government. If you say anything critical about them, they're going to go after you in whatever way possible. And in the NBA's case, they cut off all the broadcasting. In South Park's case, they apparently scrubbed them from the internet. And I'm happy for Trey and Matt sticking to their guns on this. And it's not the first time they've done this too. Was it after the Charlie Hebdo attacks? They wanted to portray, the Prophet Muhammad, and the people at Comedy Central wouldn't allow it. Wouldn't allow a written portrayal of him. A drawn portrayal of him, because that's taboo for people who follow the faith of Islam. And so they put him in. Oh, and that's even beside the point. Long before, like years before that episode, they had actually drawn the Prophet Muhammad before. For I believe it was called a group called the Super Friends in South Park. And it included people like Prophet Joseph Smith from the LDS Church. I believe Confucius was also there. Prophet Muhammad was there. And someone called Seaman. And there was, I can't remember, there was one that was representing Hinduism as well. I don't think Santa Claus was there. It's been years since I've actually watched that one. Anyway, during that episode, he was actually drawn in it. And there was no uproar. It was only after the Charlie Hebdo attacks. And I don't think that Comedy Central was right, but I understand why they were scared, because, a lot of people were unfortunately forcibly checked out after those attacks. Anyway, but Trey and Matt wanted to move forward with this, so they said, okay, so how can we actually portray Muhammad on screen? We can't actually draw the Prophet Muhammad, so they put him inside of a bear costume. So you're not actually drawing him, you're just drawing a bear costume. And again, my hat's off to them. They do stick to their guns. Let's see, and okay, and the article continues. South Park has never been afraid to be offensive, which is why the show now virtually no longer exists in China. Every clip, any online discussion from Chinese streaming services, social media, and even fan pages have been deleted by the government, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Oh my gosh. They are so afraid. They are afraid of a satirical show. The Chinese government does have the power, and they do exercise the power, to put millions of people in re-education camps in northwest China. I don't even want to know what else they're doing in the rest of China, but we know for sure they're putting Muslim minorities into re-education camps in northwest China. But they're so thin-skinned that they are afraid of a satirical cartoon show. This is actually one reason why I don't have much respect for people that go on about lambasting Trump. I mean, fine, you don't like him, I completely understand. If that's where your political policies lie, political positions lie, criticize him all you want. But if you're calling him a dictator and a fascist, you better darn well also, and you're also calling Putin the same thing, you better darn well also apply that to the communist government of China. You better also criticize them, because if you're, this goes for people who are in positions of authority in the United States, like Silver at the NBA, or anyone, the CEO of Gillette, or anyone who's at a Hollywood studio. You better or high-profile actors, as a matter of fact. They'll go day and night about criticizing Trump, but criticize the government of China? Nope, can't do that apparently. Unless you're doing that, you do not have any moral authority. As soon as you start criticizing the governments of China, I might actually take you I might actually take you a little bit more seriously about your morals when it comes to President Trump. Article continues. Stone and Parker issued an apology on Monday after China's crackdown. Well, kind of. Quote, Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts, they said in a statement on Twitter. We we too love money more than freedom and democracy. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love Trey and Matt. Okay, here is the official policy. Comes from the South Park Twitter account. Okay. Official apology to China from Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Quote, like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and to our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. She doesn't just look like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune in to our 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China. Unquote. Oh, after being upset about that last development with the NBA, this actually makes me a bit happy. Oh, excuse me. Oh. Here's the thing, though. Trey and Matt, they've always been like this. So it's actually not much of a surprise. If Trey and Matt actually bent over backwards for the communist government of China, that would be one thing. I would actually be completely shocked if that were the case. So this actually doesn't shock me at all, but it does make me feel pretty darn happy. What I will say is not shocking at all to me is, companies and actors, studios bending over backwards to China. What will shock me is if they actually do start to stand up to them